You're listening to the IWD406 Podcast with your host, Julie Walls, where we celebrate, empower, and connect women across Montana and beyond. Join us as we share inspiring stories, valuable insights, and the voices of remarkable women making a difference in their communities.
Today we have the women, the founders of Montana Brave Heart Organization, Kalee Plowman and Ashleah. So I'm going to give you a little breakdown of each. Kalee is a registered nurse, heart mom, and the founder, co-president of Montana Brave Hearts. Her son, Evitt, was born with hypoplastic left heart syndrome, HLHS, and we're going to learn a little bit more about that. And their journey through the world of congenital heart defect has driven her commitment to advocacy and support. As both a medical professional and a parent, Kalee offers a powerful perspective that guides the mission of Montana Brave Hearts, giving hope to the bravest hearts. Through her leadership, she is focused on uplifting rural Montana families and helping open the door to better care, stronger connections, and greater awareness. Now we have Ashleah, who is a devoted mother of 3, currently staying at home with her daughter Banks, who was born with a congenital heart defect, CHD, in 2022. A former teacher, Ashleah now channels her time and energy into supporting her family and advocating for others in the CHD community. As the co-president of Montana Brave Hearts, she works passionately to support families, providing resources, guidance, and a sense of community. In addition to her advocacy work, Ashleah loves sharing her family's story on social media, which I love, where she connects with others and raises awareness about the challenges of living with CHD. Through her personal experiences, Ashleah aims to inspire, empower, and offer hope to families facing similar journeys. All right, ladies, yay! I'm so glad you're here. As I'm dropping stuff.
We're so glad to be here.
I am. How are you ladies doing today?
We're good. We're very good.
You're
good.
So
good. I'm glad that it's almost finally spring in Montana. Today, anyways.
I'm like, what is happening? We go from 40 to 60 to welcome spring in Montana. You're right. All right, girls, let's get into it. Ashley, I'm going to start with you. Are you originally a Montanan, born and raised? Or are you a transplant?
I'm a transplant. I was actually born and raised in Wyoming. My husband, though, is a born and raised Montanan, and we met in Wyoming. We came back when his mother had cancer, was going through cancer treatment. She's since passed, but Montana has just become home to us. Yeah.
Okay, what part of Montana are you at?
I'm in Billings area.
Billings. Okay, yes. And so how long have you been in Billings?
Gosh, we've been here almost 10 years now, which is hard to believe. Yes.
Well, that's a huge transition from Wyoming. And what part of Wyoming?
Like Sheridan, Wyoming area, so not too far.
I love Sheridan.
I know, it's beautiful.
That's like the barbecue capital of Wyoming. I've been to a barbecue festival there for
That's hilarious.
That's awesome. Okay, so you've been here for 10 years, and now being in Billings, that's the metropolis. That's the big city here in Montana.
Yeah.
What's that been like for you?
You know, it's been great. Thankfully, I was a teacher, a kindergarten teacher, so I love kids. I've always loved to advocate and just be a teacher. And then my husband is a business owner here. So we've created lots of connections, and Billings is a great community to live in. Yeah, very blessed.
Really, it's got a lot of, there's so much fun shopping and organizations in Billings. It's a great city. I love it. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Good. Kalee, I'm going to ask you, are you a generational Montanan, or are you a transplant?
I'm also a transplant. I'm actually originally from Colorado, and then I moved to Montana. I lived in Missoula for 2 years, and then my husband and I are both nurses, and we went to University of Wyoming. So Ashleah and I have that kind of in common. I practiced there as a registered nurse for a while, and then we moved back because we love Montana so much.
Oh, wow. Okay, so now are you practicing nursing in Montana?
Yeah, so I went to nursing school in Wyoming, and then I practiced there for I think it was like 7 years, and we've been here since 2020.
Oh, wow. Okay, so 2020, and what area are you in nursing?
And I was labor and delivery, then I transferred to ER, and then now I actually work in clinical informatics and I work remote.
Oh, wow. Good for
Yeah,
you.
so yeah, I
That's
work
a
for a
great
great
field to be in. Sorry, say that
yeah,
one more time.
yeah. I work for a great little company out of South Dakota, and it's a telemedicine company. So they're a great
Wow.
organization.
Wow, I love that. And you know what? We all have something in common. We're all transplants, and we're glad to be here in Montana. It really is such a great state. And Colorado, were you guys ski girls growing up?
I snowboarded.
Yeah,
Snow.
a little bit. Yeah, but
But-
I lived in the mountains and I had a big family, so not a lot, but more when I went to college for sure.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, yeah. Montana's got 16 ski resorts. There's lots of hiking. There's so much great healing here. There's so many great things to do with our kiddos. And yeah, I love Montana. This is great. This is great. We're going to get into it, girls. Okay, let's talk a little bit about motherhood. Now, we're all moms, we're all mommies. Talk to me a little bit. I'm going to start with you, Kalee, about now you have 3 kiddos, right?
Yes,
So
yes.
talk to me a little bit about becoming a mom. What was that like?
I have my oldest is a girl, and then my middle is a girl, and then my heart warrior is my youngest, and he's a little boy. And being a mom is the best job. It's the most rewarding thing that I've ever done, and it's my sole focus. Everything else in my life revolves around being a mom.
Being a mom. And so you have girl, boy. Girl,
Yeah.
boy. Okay. And your kiddos, now how old are they? What's the differences in age?
7, 5, and 3.
7, 5, and 3. So you're in the thick of it. You are
Yeah.
in the thick of it. So
Yeah,
your
but I can
oldest,
see the sun on the other end. Like our kids are getting a little bit older, more independent. So we're in the thick of it, but it's also some of the best days as well.
absolutely. Now, Ashley, now you have how many?
I also have 3.
You have 3. And tell
Yeah.
me their ages and the sexes.
Yes, I have 2 boys, 8, 5, and then Banks, she's 2. She'll be 3 in June, and she's my little heart kiddo.
So both of you have something in common. Your youngest is the
Yes.
one that you discovered going through the process of motherhood that they have congenital heart defects. The older 2 kiddos, are they have normal
Yeah.
functional hearts and everything? Okay, wow. Wow, ladies. Okay, so walk us through the process of discovering that you have this kiddo. Did you discover it while you were pregnant, or did you discover it after they were born?
Yeah, so I found out, gosh, when I was 11 weeks pregnant at an ultrasound. The doctor saw that there was what's called fetal hydrops around like the little fetus of Banks. And that's like an indicator that something is seriously wrong with your baby. At that point, they thought it could have been like Down syndrome, something genetic. But there was this waiting time where we didn't know. I had gotten blood draws and everything kept coming back normal. So they were like, we don't know. And then it was at, gosh, 22 weeks when we finally got her official diagnosis. And her diagnosis is double inlet left ventricle. So she also has a single ventricle heart. It's similar to what Evette has, but the opposite ventricle. So yeah, I found out finally at 22 weeks through a like pediatric cardiologist. He was doing an echo. He did, yeah, it's crazy because they can do it while you're pregnant. They do the ultrasound and they do an echo. Kaylee?
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy buckets. Okay. And I want to get deeper into this. Now, Kalee, how did you discover that your youngest was?
So my little guy's name is Evette, and when I got my 20-week anatomy scan, they said, "Hey, we can't see the left side of his heart, so we'll have you come back." A lot of the time, it's positional. So then I went back and still weren't able to visualize it. And they gave me a choice of just, hey, you don't have any risk factors for this. It's probably just he's not really cooperating during this exam. But they gave us the choice of going and seeing a maternal fetal medicine for a more thorough anatomy of his heart. And that's where we got his diagnosis. So from that diagnosis happened about 26 or 27 weeks.
Wow. And did you exactly know what that diagnosis was? Hypoplastic?
Yeah, and they said, yep, and he told me that when he gave us our he said this, your son has hypoplastic left heart syndrome, and the reason why they couldn't see the left side of his heart is because it's not there.
Wow. Okay, I want to back up. There's two things I want to talk about. Number one, you have two older children that you had pretty much smooth sailing pregnancies, correct?
Yes.
And then now you have this third baby, and that moment for you had to just shift. Did you, going into your third pregnancy, did you have this feeling like, oh, I'm going to have another baby and it's going to be easy? It's going to be my third. What was it like for you? And I want to know, Kalee, from your perspective also as being a nurse, what was that like in that moment? Because I can only imagine.
You never think it's going to be you, ever. When you look at the time I was a labor and delivery nurse and I knew about congenital heart defects, and you look at that occurrence of that happening in pregnancy from such a professional perspective, that you never put yourself in that position ever. And so it was like a train. It changed everything. Nothing ever was the same after that diagnosis.
And from that moment when you knew, did you have an inkling? Did you have an inkling from a nursing's perspective? Did you think, oh, this could be it? Or did you think it was something else?
It's hard to even remember what I was thinking at that time. I was always very anxious in pregnancies because I was in maternal and fetal health. And so I knew an intricate knowledge and experienced complications at birth and what those complications presented with. So I really just went into it very optimistic. And even when they had me go do the repeat ultrasounds, I never was worried. I was only it, and so it just hit me out of nowhere. And when I couldn't see the left side, I just believed them. When I never thought you could have a congenital heart defect.
And at that time, were you familiar with all the things that can come from that? Obviously, with your nursing knowledge.
Yeah,
Did you?
but very minimally, because we deliver and then we ship them to these large, and I've always worked in rural medicine. And so we ship to these large tertiary care centers, and we know that they don't belong in Wyoming. So we just ship them out. So you're really removed from what that really means.
And okay, how did that, and I want to know from you, Ashleah, as well, in that moment and not having the nursing background, were you in this state of, this could be a mistake, or were you more of, this might be minor? Or was it something where you were immediately, this is something that's serious?
Yeah, I had two previous healthy pregnancies. So I was going into it like, I got this. Like, there's nothing. Like, you never think it's gonna be you. But when my doctor walked in, I actually had gone to I was so confident that I had gone to my initial ultrasound without my husband. I was like, it's fine. And when she walked in and she was like, is your husband here today? I immediately knew. I was like, there's something wrong. And from there on, like, it changes your entire life. But I did have something inside of me that was like, it's going to be okay. You have to have faith through this because it's a lot. But like Kalee said, like, you don't know, like, until you're in it, you like don't expect those things to happen to you.
So then going through the process of your pregnancy, how did you navigate that? Anticipating a delivery, how did you prepare for that?
Yeah, it was a lot. It was very isolating because I didn't even know this existed. When I thought of heart stuff, you think of high blood pressure, you think of heart attacks in adults. You don't think about your tiny baby having something wrong with its heart. So it was a lot. And unfortunately in Montana, OBGYNs just, they don't have a deep understanding of CHD, which is, it's reasonable. Their big care centers are not in Montana. So it was a lot of me Googling, which really is not the best idea sometimes, obviously. But thankfully, I did start getting connected with other families just through social media, just like searching. And there was a family out of Utah that specifically I had found, and it gave me more hope. And then I finally was connected to a family in Montana, and their diagnosis is quite a lot different than Banks, but just having that hope. And then finally I started doing my research and connected with a nurse in Denver, and then it just went from there.
Was this before you delivered? Because you knew as you're starting to, again, the worst thing to do is Google search, right? I'm notorious. My husband's like, stop Google searching. But as you start reading and the complexity of this, it doesn't just your child's diagnosis is different than Kaylee's diagnosis.
Yeah.
And did it bring some confusion for you? And how did it help you? It had to dampen a little bit of your joy of giving birth. Did it do that?
Yeah, absolutely. That my whole pregnancy was probably the most depressed I've been in my whole life, just because you don't know the outcome. Before I went to Colorado and actually sat with their care team, it's very doom and gloomy. There's times where people will tell you termination's probably the best answer. You have to think of the financial part of this, how it's going to affect your family emotionally, like the relationships, all of that. So there's so much to take in consideration, especially when you're going into a pregnancy expecting normal, happy, hitting the milestones, and then you're like taken aback and you're like, you don't even know if your baby's going to survive and after birth. So it's a lot.
And especially since you had the experience with the previous two.
Yes.
Going through all the motions and yes, anxiety. And we all have, as mothers and pending our birthing stories, we all have those little anxieties that we think about. Oftentimes we're like, we had a normal ultrasound. It's all good. Everything's going to be fine. And then with your situation, I can only fathom from you found out there was something going on. And it's so amazing. It amazes me of the technology where they can get so specific. Mm-hmm. And I often find, like, for myself, I don't know about you guys. I don't want to know. I want to deal with it when it comes. But now it's no, you have to know. And now you have to prepare. Same thing with you, Kalee, but you have this, not to say you don't, Ashleah, but you have this previous nursing life and exposure of all things and all the possibilities and all the different routes you can go. How did you internalize that prior to giving birth?
It was really hard because, you know what, like Ashleah had said, you read up about it on the internet because that's where your information is. And the terminology and the wording is really heavy. It's really heavy and it's very fact-based, and the facts are very painful to read. And I think then it adds this whole level of complexity of having this intricate knowledge, the gaps in the healthcare system, especially post-COVID. My son was born in 2021, and as nurses, you take ownership in your patient's care. And I didn't have any, I was his mom, but he was someone else's patient. And I found myself trying to read the care teams, but everybody was masked. And so you couldn't see their faces. And I just remember feeling, I don't know what they're thinking. I can't read them. You know that these centers are stressed with staffing shortages, those kinds of things. And so it just added to the complexity. So in regard to being a nurse and managing the care of a child with a complex heart defect, there's some benefits, but there's definitely some drawbacks as well.
That's interesting that you said that. Being a nurse, you do have to learn to read the room.
Yes.
And as women and as mommies, we are looking. Is this a bad situation? What are they thinking? And you're trying to read minds. I can only imagine that level of anxiety and not knowing what the next step was. Now, after you delivered your kiddos and your kiddos were born, what then? What was the next thing that you had to walk through?
It's the Norwood. It's so when you have a child with a ductal heart defect, like both Ashley and I's children do, they have the first surgery within generally the first week of life, and it is the hardest surgery. So generally with these kids, just for some background, they have 3-stage surgeries. They're palliative, and they're taking their hearts, which is normally a 2-pump system, and they're making it a 1-pump system. And the first surgery has the toughest statistics to swallow. And it's unusually challenging because it's this brand new baby that you just delivered and they look perfect. And they go to this really scary surgery and they come out, and due to what they do to this little walnut in their chest, they have to leave their chest open to accommodate for some of the swelling. And so back to your question about like, how do you prepare for that? You can't. And you think that you can, but nothing prepares you for that.
No. And the other thing I want to ask you, and can you explain congenital heart defect overall? And then can you also add that extra layer of the complexities of the specific diagnoses?
Sure. So that's the thing about CHD is you can have a very mild heart defect and never need intervention. It's just something that they watch, to these very severe incurable heart defects. And so you can have structural abnormalities of the heart, and then you can have things like issues with the musculature of the heart, that it just doesn't contract very well. And they generally do a CCHD screen in the hospital for all babies that are discharged, and it captures a good portion of congenital heart defects, but it doesn't capture those ones that have a challenging time with their heart musculature, that it just doesn't contract that well. So it's just a huge range in how severe it can be.
And that's interesting that you said that, because I know, did that screening just start, or has that always been?
I don't really know. It's been in practice since I started as a nurse. So I've been a nurse for, I think, 13 years at this point. And I started in maternal and fetal health. So I've always remembered this CCHD screen. I could honestly tell you that I did not understand when I started doing that screen on newborns that were born in the hospital, like what that all meant and why we were doing it. I learned eventually as I progressed in my career, but for how many times I did that screen and never thought that it would be applicable to my life, or my son would fail a CCHD screen, is pretty interesting to think about and reflect on, for sure.
Absolutely. And I have so many questions. And is there, with this type of disorder defect, I look at it now, and I'm going to share just a little bit. My mother, I had a sister that passed away from congenital heart defect. There was no indication. Now, she came home from the hospital, looked like a normal baby. So from the outside, the baby's born, there's no indication. It's like a hidden thing happening. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's like the hardest part about these kiddos is most of them, they look like a perfect human. And I think that's like the awareness component that Kalee and I always talk about, is because our children look healthy, even though they're not healthy. And that's hard for people to grasp, because they have a major defect or something that's not curable, but they look perfectly healthy. And even in my mind, Banks I'm biased, but she's a very perfect, cute little girl. And when you look at her, if you didn't see her scar, you would have no idea that anything is wrong with her.
Even when they're born, they don't have shallow breathing. There's no indicators on any level.
I would say that there definitely would be indicators. A normal, I would say somebody in a professional background probably wouldn't. I would see anything different, especially depending on the severity of the heart defect. Kalee probably is better about answering these questions because she does have the medical background. But me as a normal, everyday kindergarten teacher human, it would be hard to tell other than now the things that I know you to look for. But
Absolutely. Now, I do want to we're going to have to cover this because I know it's sensitive, but with this type of defect, the prognosis is scary. Talk to me a little bit about that piece to walk through.
It's like I had mentioned before, it's single ventricle. So they only have one pump. And so the reason why not only do these kids have to go and survive 3 very invasive open heart surgeries, but even given the 3 surgeries, it's just they're already put in a position where their heart function isn't that great because they only have one pumping ventricles. I think the hardest part about this for Ashleah, and I think Ashleah could agree with me, is that it's like you finish these 3 open heart surgeries and then you just have this ticking time bomb in your child's chest of like when it's going to decompensate. And then you're just waiting and hoping that it doesn't. You're hoping that research will catch up. But at some point in their life, probably sooner than I know it's going to be sooner than we want, they're going to have those conversations with our kids about their hearts failing. And that's where that's the component that is the heavy component of it, is that eventually at any time they could go into heart failure.
So there's 2 things I want to ask you. Okay, so there's a standard care process which requires 3 surgeries consecutively, correct? Right after the baby's born, within how many weeks?
The first surgery happens anywhere from 2 to 3 days to 10, I want to say.
Okay. So you have to brace yourself for that. Once they get through that very risky surgery, then how do they know when the next surgery is? Have they created like a timeline?
Yeah, so the next surgery, and it can vary center to center, like every hospital does things a little bit different, but it's around 6 months.
Wow. Okay. So during this process, this kiddo is having major surgery. And then on top of that, feeding, starting to introduce foods, being around siblings, starting to move and crawl and roll over and doing all these things. How does that come into play?
yeah, so it does look different it looks different in every case, but like Pink's case, when she got her first surgery, what can happen is they can nick the vocal cord. So she ended up having feeding issues. So she had a G tube. So we have to learn something else. So we had to learn how to do a feeding tube and all of that. Plus, most of these kiddos are on extensive amounts of medication, especially in between those 2 surgeries. But yeah, she was also in physical therapy. We had appointments pretty much weekly in between the 2 surgeries and for a while after. But it's a lot of advocating, and you obviously want your children to hit milestones. Like that's one of the biggest things that you're proud of is milestones. And I could say that I took that for granted with my boys because they're walking. And now every milestone with your heart baby, you like cherish every moment because it's so different because you don't know if you get those milestones, but you're asking though, yeah, it's a lot. They can have setbacks from even being in the hospital for a prolonged amount of time. Banks took a lot longer to sit up or to walk than my boys did just because of her medical condition.
And that's interesting because everything just looks different for motherhood with a congenital heart defect baby. One thing I want to ask you, obviously you have a soon after birth, then you have a 6-month surgery, and then when is the 3rd surgery?
That varies quite a bit, but both of our kids get care in Denver, so they generally like to do like around the age of 3, but some centers prefer 5 and 6. So my son had his third surgery last summer, and Banks is having her third surgery this summer.
Wow. Now, my question is, you have family, you have husbands, you have life going on all around you. How do you keep moving forward, going through all of these surgeries, waiting and praying? How do you maintain and explain what's happening with your kids, with your husband? Was that a challenge for you too?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's hard. Navigating this situation is just so hard. You have to think of like the financial aspects, even like Banks's next surgery is coming up soon, and I had to think about, okay, am I gonna make it to my 5-year-old's kindergarten graduation? So you have to like think of what your other children, you could miss out on your other children, or what your children will miss out on because of having to care for your child with a heart condition. And marriage is very hard. Like, you can get stronger, and I know that some marriages, it's hard. It's an emotional time. I It's probably one of the hardest things, and thankfully I've found other families like Kaylee's, and Mandy and Kayleen's, where we can talk with each other, but it's really hard for other families that aren't in this situation to wrap their minds around what you're going through at all.
Yes. And Kalee, I want to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, you don't care about CH, you hear it all the time. You don't care about CHD until it personally affects you. And others are never going to understand what you're going through. I think that if anything, this journey's really strengthened my relationship with my mom, because for my family, like in my family realm, she can relate to what you're going through. Even our husbands, they process grief and they process the care of our children totally different. And we really bond, and those friendships are really forged in fire, because when I met Ashleah, that was probably one of the lowest points of my life. And we meet each other and we rely on each other in the ditches. And those relationships just translate and bring so much to our lives in such a challenging situation.
Absolutely. And I just have to say, to be going through this process, and we didn't really quite touch point on the prognosis piece, because you have mentioned it. Your child is essentially going to be living in palliative care, correct? There isn't a lot of children that have congenital heart defects that either maybe it closes up. Is that an option? Have you guys have seen that, where the heart, as it continues to develop, it eventually repairs itself? Or is this something where children live with this? And unfortunately, what is the life expectancy?
Yeah, so that's not something that's always easy for us to talk about. And the prognosis is poor. I have a friend, she has the same heart defect as my son, and she's my age, but she is an exception. When they started doing these surgeries decades ago, they really didn't take into consideration all of the complications from these initial surgeries that can happen as a result of that, like, change in circulation. And so there's not only heart issues after the palliative surgeries, but there's liver issues. All the end organs can get damaged from that pressure. And there's no solution. They can be medically managed with different medications. And then when a child's heart starts to go into failure, or an adult that lives with CHDs, the heart starts to go into failure, the next conversation is transplant. But that's a common thing that we talk about, is transplant's not a solution. Many of our children don't qualify for transplants by the time they get there. They've been living their lives with a single ventricle heart, and now they have to transition to having a 2-pump heart. And how well do they transition to that? And as much as the statistics are getting much better, they're still not good enough for us. So 5% of adults living with severe CHD, so 25% of people born with severe congenital heart defects, or congenital heart defects, period, I believe, are living to adulthood. But that is a life of complex care, appointments, lots of different teams, GI. It takes a toll on mental health. So there's lots of layers, and it gets very complex.
It really does. Wow. So I want to talk about the need for support. And I'm hearing that you've got wonderful husbands, you've got amazing moms and dads and people in your circle. And I'm just going to share a little bit on my end of when my sister had passed, there was nothing. There was no one understood what my mom was dealing with. And so she dealt with that the best way that she could, and she really didn't have anybody to lean on. Same thing with a family friend whose sister ended up living a beautiful long life, and but many surgeries, not a lot of people understood what they were dealing with. They had to fly to another hospital system that was further away. They had to lean on family and friends to take care of the additional kids. And I look at the two of you, and did you two know each other before giving birth to a kiddo that has congenital heart disease?
No, we didn't. Kalee and I actually met through social media.
Okay.
It's amazing. My sister-in-law sent Kalee's video from Montana Bravehearts, originally Evet's Hope. And I remember feeling just so much comfort knowing that there was like another Montana family going through what my family was. It was so much relief because her son has a very similar heart defect. I hadn't actually met a family with something similar to Banks. I feel like Kalee and I instantly connected. I saw advice from Kalee. She's a little farther ahead of me in this journey, and she's a nurse. So it's advice from somebody that knows the medical situation is really nice too. And it just helped me so much be able to take care of Banks. And obviously, Evet's story gives me hope because he is a little farther ahead. Like, he's through his third surgery, which is amazing. That's such a huge milestone for these kiddos. It's just been really amazing getting to know Kalee and her family.
Yes. And you've been through social media? That's how you met.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's crazy.
that is crazy. Now, at that point, now when you two met, you had it's called Evet's Journey. Is that what you had on social media?
When I founded Montana Brave Hearts, our original name was Evet's Hope. My sole focus when I founded the nonprofit was from this place of pain where I wanted like a solution. There was this problem and I needed a solution. And so I immediately like put my coping and what research was doing. And so that was my original goal with Evet's Hope. But after meeting and becoming friends with Ashleah and just bonding with her, she had her own vision of what she wanted for a nonprofit. And I really liked her vision. And we were like, hey, I asked her if she wanted to team up. And it developed into what it is today. As we have four founding heart moms, and each one has added a different layer and brought a different component to the nonprofit. And the great thing about Montana Brave Hearts is that we give back to the community for how we feel is best for us. So it's like we get our own autonomy and how we want to serve this mission. And I just feel like Ashleah and I have grown together, and we started out as like little baby heart moms, and now we're getting our kids through the surgeries and we're giving advice to other families. And it's just a relationship that it's just different. And I don't know what I would have done without my heart mom friends and all this.
Unreal. Because I can only imagine being in Montana and discovering this is what you've got to deal with. And I love the fact that social media is such a great space for people to connect, seeking understanding, seeking hope. And the fact that you chose to share his story online, I obviously know you're capturing him and his process and all the things that's disheartening but also beautiful. And then you found out that Ashleah discovers you, and this is how it's developing. Do you think you would have been able to find other moms if you hadn't used social media in this way?
No, it would have never happened. I remember following so many families based on hashtags on Instagram, hypoplastic left heart, HLHS, those kinds of things. And I have a little bit of, because I'm a little ahead of Ashleah, I had another heart mom who lost her baby reach out to me, and then I knew another heart mom locally, but I really didn't talk to anybody. I didn't really interact with anybody about it. I didn't reach out and try to make connections. It was because those first like 6 months are just brutal. We relocated from Polson, Montana. We were in Denver for the first 7 months of my son's life. So you really do feel disconnected, and social media there's this tumultuous relationship I have with social media that it's brought so much goodness to my life, and just trying to navigate ensuring that it's building connections and whatnot. And I know countless heart families that I talk to on a regular basis, and all of those connections have happened over social media.
Wow. Now, okay, I want to back up. You just said you were in Denver for 7 months. And I want to ask you, and that's where you both go, right? For your kiddo to get the surgeries, receive treatments, things like that. How is it being that far away from that hospital system and managing care? Do you get anxious about that? Or how have you been able to live in Montana and still manage the care because there's nothing in Montana to help, correct?
I think it probably looks a little different for both of us. I'm in
Okay.
Billings, which is a bigger city than Polson, obviously. And at first it was very scary. So my family chose to come home in between the two surgeries, which the doctors in Denver probably could say that they wouldn't have wanted us to, but our surgeon did. He was like, yes, if they feel comfortable. So we chose to come home, and when we came home, we were in and out of the pediatric cardiology center here every 2 weeks, getting checkups in between her surgery. Now, being post Glenn, I feel very confident. We have an amazing doctor here in Billings. His name is Dr. Big. He's actually a part of the Montana Bravehearts board. He's such a blessing to all of us, I think, because he's amazing. He's even given his phone number so I can just like text him. So that's been really amazing. But yeah, it is scary because Dr. Big can only do so much. He can do the echoes, he can do the EKGs, he can fix medicines. But if it were to come down to her needing a cath emergently or a heart surgery, we would have to be flown out to Denver. So a part of it is scary, but she's in a great place right now. Yeah.
Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about you two coming together. And at this point, did you guys meet each other in person? And no, it was all over social media.
Yes.
And then you then decided to come together to create the Braveheart organization, correct?
Yes.
Wow. And first I want to know why Braveheart, why Montana Braveheart?
When I started Evet's Hope, it was from this place of pain. And then I wanted to heal. And because I didn't have the support from heart moms, it was very therapeutic to be that support to other heart moms. And that's like my focus was research. Ashley's focus was family support. And I changed the name because it wasn't about Evet anymore. It was about all these kids that our family had come to learn their stories and learn about them. And I wanted a platform where we could share lots of different families' stories because they're so powerful, and they're interwoven with so much resiliency that's where the magic is. The magic is in the community, it's in the families. And that's why I changed the name to where it was from Evet's Hope to Montana Bravehearts. And that was changed pretty quickly after I started the organization. I started the organization in fall of 2022, and then we changed the name, and Ashley came on board like within February or March. We had pivoted and joined forces pretty early in our nonprofit journey.
Wow. Now, initially, when you got together, what were the first few goals?
I think for me, myself, I know how isolating it was. It was so lonely. So just even being able to connect with families and tell my story or Kaylee's story, just so they didn't feel alone, because it can feel so lonely. And then we did quickly start doing a care package program. That was like the big goal that we had. And then, of course, still doing the research side of donating to research, which I'll let Kalee speak more on that. But yeah, our goals were pretty much the same, just like spreading awareness, getting families connected, and donating to research.
How did you do that? How did you connect families and how did you create a space for sharing stories?
Oh, a lot. It's been hard. And like Kalee said, it's still been hard reaching families. That's one thing that we're still trying to do. But social media is actually just the most amazing thing. And we just continually share our stories, or our friends started tagging us when they saw that there's a new heart defect, or yeah, in Montana with somebody that's going through it. We started getting tagged, and then it's just spiraled. And now that we have Dr. Big on our board, he can speak about our organization a little. So that's been helpful too, but mostly social media.
Okay, so through the Facebook page?
Instagram mainly.
Okay, gotcha. So when Dr. Big had a new patient, he would say, you need to connect with these women. They have an organization. This is where you're going to receive some support, correct?
Yeah, and then because of we've had this built this relationship with Dr. Big, another goal we had this year was reaching out to all the pediatric cardiologists. And because I have a full-time job, this is kind of stuff that we do on our free time, but we're busy moms, so it doesn't ever happen as quickly as we want it to. But we really decided that after a couple years of just not reaching the number of families we were hoping to, we're working to partner with the pediatric cardiologists in Montana so they can send us more families. And so we sent them just like a little swag bag of office supplies and just told them about our programs. And we've had a great response. I've been filling a lot of care packages, which is always really rewarding.
That's amazing. So you give so when a person comes to you or is seeking support or resources, you initially give them a care package. What's in that care package?
In the care package, we have a lot of hospitals. They're really cold. So we give parents it's the hospital room couch that they sleep on. So we send them a really like warm blanket for them. We send babies some basic things that are comforting, like a little CHD, Wubbanub binky, noisemakers, because hospitals are so noisy. We send a gift card to help with transportation, gas, and those kinds of things. And then we do send things to the heart siblings and the heart parents, and just let them know that we're there. However, I will say that we are evolving and we'd like to slowly transition out of our care package program and just be able to offer these families like stipends or a small lump sum of money to help cover the costs, because we think that probably would make the most difference. But when we started the organization, we didn't have that kind of money. And so we would just ask companies for product donations, and that's how we would build our care packages. And now that I'm running out of care package supplies, we're talking about how we can better support families.
That's amazing. You ladies, I cannot believe it's unreal. And just knowing that you guys came together just to talk, just to sit in space with one another, and I'm assuming crying, maybe leaning on each other for, I can't believe I'm here, and obviously sharing. You've got an amazing wealth of knowledge being in the hospital system and helping each other go through each procedure, and then deciding, you know what, we need to do something bigger. There's a lot of people that need us. And now just starting with care packages and creating a space where people can share their stories, to now you're building this organization out, because I obviously know that there are massive needs. This is not financially easy to walk through for families. Talk to me about some of the biggest hurdles and challenges that people face walking through this process.
I think this is something Ashley and I talk about a lot. Is Montana is particularly tough to get this diagnosis because our families travel so far, not only just to see their pediatric cardiologist, but these tertiary care centers. Denver's a 15-hour drive for me. Not only do they have to navigate these challenging surgeries and transportation and being out of employed, but we don't have I think there's a pretty significant wait list for the Medicaid waiver program in this state. So both Ashley and I rely solely on our private insurance to pay our medical bills, which is very expensive.
Wow. Yes. And that doesn't really usually cover traveling, lodging, eating, supporting the kids that are at home, caregiving. What you guys are doing is monumental. Monumental for people that, if you think about it, people that have kids that have cancer, they have St. Jude, Ronald McDonald House, all these things. And you guys are building that for kids that have congenital heart defects and their families. This isn't just impacting one person, it's impacting many people. Walk me through starting with care packages, then obviously creating a support system, shooting for working with pediatric programs, but then now partnering with HeartWorks in Montana. Talk to us a little bit about what HeartWorks is and those goals.
So this is where I always feel like I light up a little bit. This topic is so heavy, and these are our babies. And I always feel like a really great transition at this point. So HeartWorks is actually in Rochester, Minnesota. They are associated with Mayo Clinic, and they have a mission to cure the most severe forms of congenital heart disease. And what I love most about HeartWorks is they're so innovative, and the way that they do research and the way that they meet families where they are is just like nothing, there's nothing comparable to it. And why this is applicable to Montanans, of course, for our kids, we want to see a cure for our kids, but for rural families, healthcare feels so different. Ashley, when she goes to Denver to get care for her daughter, like they just act like it's a Tuesday. Like it's just, this is what they do and they're good at it. Whereas up here, we feel pretty isolated. And so HeartWorks, not only are they trying to come up with therapies to strengthen the single ventricle heart, but they also have this facing this challenge of finding those patients and designing products that really do serve this population. And so they have this like data cooperative where you can donate your child's medical chart. And not only are you then in a pool to qualify for studies, but then it's also how they design that research. So you can get on this like data cooperative and you can tell this application what symptoms your child's having, and researchers are paying attention and they're looking to design products around our kids. And so for Montanans, it's really, or anybody living in a rural area, it's a really innovative concept of how research is done, because you're at the forefront of knowing what research is being done and being able to take charge in your own care. Because being in rural Montana, we have, where we're at in Polson and Kalispell and Missoula, we have 2 pediatric cardiologists for that giant service area, and they have tons of patients. And so how do we bridge this gap in care for Montanan families? And we think that answer is HeartWorks and the data cooperative. And trying to share that message can be challenging because it's very medical and there's lots of technical terminology, but we're dedicated to sharing the hope that we have in a cure for congenital heart disease.
That's amazing. That is amazing. How do you share? And I know this is turning to what you guys are doing with raising money. And you guys have raised a tremendous amount of money in only less than 3 years, right? 3 years from the start of the organization to now. I know you just did a fundraising event. And Ashley, Kalee, you are killing it with sharing data. And I want to know how this information can get out further to people to get their kiddos a part of this data cooperative. Is the fundraising events where you share that information?
So at our gala this last year, we were able to have Dr. Tim Nelson, who is basically the CEO of HeartWorks, which was amazing. For Kalee and I, we like to describe him as like our Taylor Swift, because it's just like when he's in the room, it's amazing. But yeah, so through our events, that's how we share a lot about HeartWorks and why we work with them. And then we have tried on social media too. But to an everyday person, it's a lot of terminology and it's hard for people to understand. And I think that we're at a point where we're trying to get it get people to understand in terms that that are easy for them to get the knowledge and why we're doing it. It's been hard, though. I think that's probably one of the hardest things, even for Heartworks themselves, is getting that word out there. But that's something especially Kalee is very passionate about because she does understand it better than I do even. But it's, yeah, just trying to get the word out through social media and our events and that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Yes. Do you have anything in the works that you're thinking of on how to get that information out? And I want to know, just a side note, is Tim Nelson is the CEO of Heartworks. Does he have a personal story on why he's so convicted in this space?
So he's a pediatric cardiologist. It's my understanding, and Tim's so busy talking about all the research that he does, he doesn't really talk about his background that much, but he was training to be a cardiothoracic surgeon. And I think he just saw this massive gap and just the changes in healthcare. And I think he wanted to lean into them. And so this is what he's doing.
Wow. Holy buckets. So now, okay, with the gala that you guys just did, what was your goal?
My gosh. Honestly, it's just always so nerve-wracking because you never know like what the turnout's gonna be or anything like that. I think our goal this year was to raise $65,000 because last year it was 55, and we ended up raising around $90,000 for our gala, which was it blew our minds. I can't thank our supporters enough for what they did and just coming out to support Montana Bravehearts is amazing. But honestly, our big thing with those events is spreading awareness. That's like the big component is getting awareness out there about these kiddos because like we've talked about before, they don't look sick. So it's really hard for people to wrap their minds around the fact that they are sick when they don't look like they're sick. So spreading the awareness at the events is our huge thing. Like even if we didn't make any money, Kalee and I have talked about this, just the awareness component is so huge.
It is so huge. And I love this partnership and collaboration with Heartworks. How amazing. We have to get studies. We have to get parents to know that their child, as unfortunate as it is, giving that data over is going to build hope. It's going to build opportunities towards getting better procedures and treatments and bringing longevity. And I think this is amazing collaboration. That is awesome that you guys have formed that partnership.
That's
Unreal.
that's all Kalee. Kalee has done an amazing job.
No, it really is a team effort. Ashley really owns the gala. She owns our social. Kayleen is the other Heart mom that's in Billings. Like they really own our social media. So I'm on the family advisory board for Heartworks, and I take my job and my role pretty serious. And like I said earlier, we all contribute in ways that are meaningful to us. And so that's why our team is so powerful. It's because each of us has something to bring to the table. Mandy, one of our members of our board, she's a Heart mom, and I'm at her house right now, and she has a background in nonprofit work. And when it comes to a lot of the administrative stuff and how me and Ashley have no background in nonprofit work, we were just guessing the whole time. And bringing Mandy Anderson on board and helping us getting all of our paperwork in order, and Kayleen with her, she's very artistic, and Ashley and Kaylene have a great community in Billings, and we just have a great team. And we've brought on 3 more members of our board. We have Dr. Big, and then we have some Heart grandparents who are very talented and bring lots to the table too. So we have lots of high hopes. We're just getting started with Montana Bravehearts, and we're pretty excited about it.
Yes. And it's amazing what skill sets when they come together and you guys have this amazing mission. And it's so powerful what you guys have done in just, like I said, in less than 3 years. It's unreal. Over what, $300,000 donations to help all these families, and then 90,000 given towards research, which is remarkable. Plus, not only that, but still managing your own home lives, right? Your own families and cherishing all these moments with your kiddos. It's remarkable. I don't know how y'all sleep at night, right?
I don't know that Ashley, do we sleep very often?
I think it's remarkable. Kalee, you had mentioned when we did our pre-chat that choice brings hope. And I want you to expand on what that means to you after all that you guys have been through.
Yeah, I sat with that question a little bit. And I think that for me, I think that idea of choice brings hope is just unique to how my journey's gone, that you have a choice on how you're going to handle this. You have a choice on how you're going to cope with this diagnosis. And that choice, when you show up every day and you face it in the best way you know how, and it translates. And I see it in my son every day. And I, as I mentioned before, when I started working with Montana Bravehearts, it was from a place of a lot of pain. And I'm transitioning to this place where I'm working from a place of commitment and healing and empowering this community and human connection. And it gives me a lot of hope that we're working on something pretty great.
You are. And I really love that you've taken the situation and you have created this organization to give people hope. Because like you mentioned, you were probably just at one point completely hopeless, right? But to transform that and to know that this is bigger, this impact is bigger than yourself and your own family situation is remarkable, Kalee. You should be really proud of yourself. And you're going to get me emotional. Ashleah, what is one of your biggest takeaways?
Oh goodness. My biggest takeaway is listen to that hope. Honestly, my faith has grown so much stronger through all of this. And I think if you don't have faith through this journey, it's so hard to make it through. I think that is my biggest takeaway, and just not taking anything for granted. When you have healthy kiddos, sometimes you're taking everyday things for granted with them. And just now I just soak everything in. Like even my older boys now, like everything is so much bigger than it used to be for me. Just enjoying motherhood and just having faith is probably my biggest thing though. Yeah.
I love this. And this is probably somebody who's listening in that just recently got this diagnosis, right? I think your stories and the storytelling is so important. And through storytelling, you guys are giving people hope. And by living by your faith, obviously, that's helping people to feel this is something bigger, right? Or something bigger in all of this, right? This whole experience. You ladies are remarkable. You really are. And I feel so honored to be having this conversation and knowing that you guys are working towards raising money, helping families. How can people help you?
You can go to montanabravehearts.org and there's a donate button right there. And it's super easy to just go right there. Or our biggest other thing is coming to our events. I know we have another event coming up on May 31st. We're doing a fun run. It's virtually or in person at the Vermilion Ranch. And then Kalee and Mandy are hosting a really fun event, dueling pianos on New Year's Eve up in Western Montana. Kalee probably can speak to that more. But yes, going to our website or attending our events would be the most amazing things that people can do. Yes.
Awesome. Kalee, talk a little bit about the dueling pianos event. I want to hear about this.
Yeah, we're really excited about it. Mandy, one of our co-moms, really just thought that we needed to have like a fun party celebration type event. And so we thought, I know that sometimes I can get a babysitter on New Year's Eve and I'd love to have a night off. And so this is a great place for people that don't want to go to a bar or something to come and, party down and celebrate a good cause. And New Year's Eve, Kalispell, we'll be posting lots of information about it as we continue to get a little bit closer.
Very cool. Now, you guys do your gala once a year?
Yes.
And when does that take place?
It's up in the air for next year, but typically we do it at the beginning of February. But we're trying to decide if weather-wise we need to maybe make some changes. But in the past, we've done it the very first Friday, Saturday in February.
Okay. And then that is located where?
That is in Billings.
Billings. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. That event. Wow. And that's where you have some of your key speakers, your doctors, Dr. Big, Dr. Nelson. And that's where they can come and learn more about the organization and donate in a big way.
Yes.
Right? Okay, good. Awesome. Ladies, I really enjoyed having this conversation as hard as it is. But you guys are excellent moms, excellent examples to resilience, giving people hope and doing major things to make a major impact. And I'm just really proud to have had the opportunity to sit with and grateful too. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you. This has been amazing.
So thanks for
It
having
has
us.
been.
This was great podcast. We're so excited to be part of it, and we're so glad to have this opportunity to share a story in this space, and we're really honored.
Oh, I'm honored, but it's not over yet. We still have a couple questions left. So I want to ask a fun question, and I want to hear from each of you. Okay. So I'm going to start with you, Kalee. If there was a superpower you could give all your congenital heart defect parents, what would it be and why?
I actually thought of Ashley when I was starting to think about this. Where she's at right now is where I was at last year. So if I had to give CHD heart families the superpower, I would say the ability to stop and speed up time. I always used to say that when my son had heart surgery, can you just knock me out and wake me up when it's over? But then there's also that component of wanting to just be completely present with your kids and like those challenging moments. So if that was a superpower I could give to families, that's what it would be.
Okay. All right. Ashley, what would be your superpower?
I think mine would be the ability to remove fear and replace it with confidence. Just the uncertainty that this comes with, it's hard. And I feel if parents just had that confidence and they could fully embrace the moments of joy and the progress without being weighed down by the what ifs all the time, I think they would just be able to enjoy it without anxiety and it would be amazing. But that's what mine would be. Yes.
I love that. Both of you guys. Amazing. All right, girls, we're getting to our last question, and it's part of our podcast that kind of is our special segment. It's Pass the Mic. So I'm going to go ahead and start with you, Ashley. If you could pass the mic to a Montana woman to share their story on the IWD406 podcast, who would she be and why?
So this one is a lot different than our podcast today, but I have followed, her name is Kylie Nelson, and she's actually like a fashion influencer here in Billings, and she's just so fun, and her story is amazing to watch, and she's gained such a following. Being able to be an influencer in Montana is pretty amazing, honestly. Yeah. And so she's just really fun, in her background and how she became so confident in influencing is just really great.
Kylie Nelson. And so she has a store?
No, she doesn't have a store. She is a social media influencer. So she gets to go on all of those influencing fun trips and share her clothes and all of that stuff. I love that stuff. So it's just been fun watching her gain a following. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Welcome to the podcast. Awesome. All right, Kalee, you're up.
Yeah. When I first started the nonprofit, it was a lot of fundraising. And one of the first bites that were yes, we'll donate to you and wanted to learn more about us was a company called Jafita Enterprises up in Kalispell. And Michelle Jafita, she and her husband Phil run this company. We get a lot of our merch from them, but Michelle just started a title company. And I think they have quite a bit going on, and it seems like they're always doing a different project. I think Phil dabbles in real estate and drone work and all sorts of stuff. And so she's just an interesting character. And so if I pass the mic to anybody, it would be Michelle for sure.
Michelle Jafita.
Jafrida.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Wait, so they started out with you said a cycle company?
No, so they we get our merch from them. And it was so weird because I just randomly found them online and asked if they would donate something for our very first fundraiser. And when you're first fundraising, it's a tough game. And so they immediately came back, were like, yes, we absolutely want to. And I know that they donate to lots of nonprofits and they're very involved in the community. And we buy a lot of merch from them and they donate a lot of merch to us. And like their products, like what their service that they provide is really quality. And they're just they've been great to us with Montana Brave Hearts and bringing awareness to our organization, and just a great couple.
That's awesome. That's wonderful. Montana is such a giving state.
Totally.
There are so many amazing nonprofits in this state and so many awesome people that give. They give so much. But you guys are giving so much back to your communities. And like I said, I'm just really thankful to have had the opportunity to chat with you guys. And let's do another podcast and talk more. So you ladies are remarkable. And thank you again for spending this time with me.
Thank you so much. This has been amazing.
A special thank you to our podcast guest. You can find all of her links in the description of this episode. If you like what you heard, please hit subscribe. You will be notified of future podcast guests. Follow us on our social media platforms and stay tuned for our next podcast chat with an amazing Montana woman.